Thank you, Linda. Here to further discuss the situation in Lebanon is civil society activist Sara Assaf with me. Thank you for being here, Sara.
Thank you.
I'm going to get right to it. The Hezbollah-led March 8 alliance stepping up its rhetoric in the run-up to next year's presidential election, which is supposed to happen in May, by reiterating its conditions for the formation of a new cabinet. Now, we have been without a cabinet for almost 10 months, and the cabinet deadlock has raised fears of a presidential vacuum if Parliament fails to elect a new leader on time. And I want to know, because I know you've worked with March 14 and supported them in the past, where do you think March 14 is in all of this?
I think March 14 is not present enough. I mean, as usual, and until now, March 14 has always failed in having a very unified decision about any upcoming big event that's happening in the country. So unlike March 8, which is always very systematic, every time they all agree on one decision and they all fight for it and lobby for it. March 14, on the contrary, it's always everything till the last minute. You feel there's no real plan, there's no real vision. So I'm afraid that March 14 will not be ready for this major event that's happening, like it was not ready for many other events before.
So it's just been a little bit absence. Speaking of March 14, its leader, its current leader, former Prime Minister Saad Hariri, met with former Prime Minister Fouad Senoura in Paris a couple of days ago, and they spoke about the Special Tribunal for Lebanon and its importance. And as they said, the Special Tribunal for Lebanon is scheduled January 16, 2014 as the date for the start of trials of the 4 Hezbollah members indicted in the 2005 assassination of former Prime Minister Rafiq al-Hariri. And so far, we haven't seen Hezbollah even acknowledge that the special tribunal is legitimate. And I know you have your concerns about that because you think that Hezbollah should surrender these 4 people and move forward to more justice. Am I correct?
Exactly. I think that Hezbollah, I mean, it's not only that they do not believe in the special tribunal and they make it a point to always discredit it. Now, because the special tribunal is going to be very active as of January, we're starting to hear a lot of propaganda around the killing of Rafiq al-Hariri. They're starting to mention, again, we're starting to see stories about Wissam al-Hassan.
Right, how Wissam al-Hassan could have been involved in the assassination.
And all of this because the special tribunal is coming very soon. And I think that Hezbollah, I mean, it's high time that Hezbollah realizes that Hezbollah is Lebanese before being anything else, and it's most of the Lebanese, a whole community follows Hezbollah. It's high time for Hezbollah to realize that they cannot continue like this, because like this we can never really build a country.
So what is the first thing you think Hezbollah should do?
I think the first thing Hezbollah should do is, even if they do not believe in the special tribunal like they say, they should just surrender the 5 people who are indicted in the murder of Rafiq Hariri and let, I mean, the rule of law be enforced. Let them go. Let them try to fight for their case if they really believe that they are not the murderers of Rafiq al-Hariri.
I want to bring this to the role of the army, which a lot of people question, and a lot of people say, if there was an army in place and the army was strong enough and legitimate, then Hezbollah would not be what it is today, which a lot of people believe it should not have the arms and the weapons that they have. Am I correct?
Yes, I think the role of I think the whole issue of the army has become a taboo in Lebanon, and I think this is wrong, because somewhere we all know that Hezbollah has a much stronger military presence on the ground than the army. This is on one side, and this is, I mean, it's normal that the army cannot really act like a normal army because of the presence, because of the military presence of Hezbollah. And many things happened in Lebanon before, many events where we saw that the army was not really objective. And this is happening.
Is Tripoli
still.
One of them, you think?
Tripoli is one of them, Abra is one of them, May 7, 2008 is one of them. All these events contributed, if you want, they're accumulating and they're contributing in making a gap between the army and a certain community in Lebanon, which is the Sunni community. And I think if March 14 does not really take this issue seriously and try to discuss it in a more open way, this gap's going to widen. I mean, we see that many times in Tripoli, the army is being targeted. And of course, it's not the fault of the soldiers on the ground.
Right. I mean, Tripoli has, you know, and as a civil society activist, you can tell me more about this. Tripoli has a lot of issues, most of it coming right now from the spillover of the Syrian crisis, as we see between Jabal al-Muhsin and Bibi Tabene, and the Alawites, pro-Assad people, and the Sunni anti-Assad people. You know, and it's hard to, every now and then, there's been the bombings in the summertime, every now and then there are clashes, people constantly die. What's the solution with this?
I think, first of all, we should separate between the clashes, you know, the clashes which have become, unfortunately, like a mainstream event in Tripoli, and between the two explosions, which are literally a terrorist act that happened on Tripoli. Yes, the clashes definitely are a spillover of what's happening in Syria. The terrorist acts, which is the bombing of the two mosques, need to be really tackled in a different way. Because those bombings, there were investigations that happened after those bombings, and those investigations showed that Ali Eid, who's the head of the Arab Democratic Party, was responsible somewhere in those bombings. And until now, Mr. Eid has refused to go to the questioning of the military tribunal. And as long as the army, exactly, does not enforce the rule of law in Tripoli and get Ali Eid and Rifat Eid, the clashes are bound to become even worse, because now it's not only about the clashes that are happening between Bibi Tabene and Jabal al-Muhsin. Now, whenever someone from Jabal al-Muhsin goes to Tripoli, to Bibi Tabene, they're being targeted. Literally, they're being targeted. They're being people are shooting on them. This is a huge problem, and this is bound to become even more dangerous.
I want to mention this. I know because it is also a big effect of what's happening in Syria. And I know we are affected by what's happening in Syria, by Hezbollah's direct involvement in Syria, and us being, you know, a lot of different sects also providing humanitarian aid to Syrian rebels. What I want to know is, do you think that the situation in Lebanon is only going to be resolved when the Syrian crisis is resolved?
I think a lot of people are talking about the concept of neutralizing Lebanon, but I think it's very difficult to do that. And even if this is going to happen, it's not going to happen now, you know, in the middle of this huge crisis that's taking place. Maybe it will happen after, you know, when things get settled down a little bit, and we can discuss more, everyone can sit down and discuss more the concept of Lebanon, and how do we want Lebanon to be, and if we want a neutral Lebanon, and if this is possible or not. But today, yes, of course, the issue of Lebanon is directly related to what's happening in Syria.
So we will not see anything happening. So we are currently basically being threatened by having no government, perhaps no president, and the Syrian crisis has no end in sight, and all these refugees are in. And
I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound a bit surprising, but I really believe that this is a detail. I mean, if there is a government or not today is a detail, because there was a government a year ago, and it was not able to do anything, you know? And there was a government even before, the government of Prime Minister Saad Hariri, and it was also not able to do anything. So really having a government or not having a government, for me, is really like a detail when you look at the big picture. I think there's a huge problem in Lebanon. The country is hijacked. More lobbying should be done, on a local level, on a regional level, and on a global level, to really put pressure on Hezbollah. And maybe now, you know, this closeness between the US and Iran could maybe, you know, take things to a better place in Lebanon. But the idea is that we really need to lobby, because we have a country that is hijacked, and this is what we need to work on. A government will not really make a difference.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today,
Ms. Sara
Assaf. That was civil society activist Ms. Sara Assaf with us. We look forward to having you back here. Back to you, Linda.